What's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Box Score. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. And today in Vegas, they've got to do some hirings. They fired 3 coaches on the offensive side of the ball, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We will recap Sunday Night Football with some metrics that you need to know of Minneapolis, or how about just Minnesota? They play for the whole state of Minnesota, 21, and Indianapolis, 13. I think I combined Minnesota and Indianapolis there. I think that's what happened there. Anyway, I'm Adam with Jacob and Dan. Today, our big topics. All right, the best and worst playoff schedules for quarterbacks. Did you guys see my promotional tweet for this show?
I did see your promotional tweet. It was a great promotional tweet.
I am so excited to tell you about the quarterback who has the best schedule coming up. His opponents ranked 29th, 31st, 28th, 7th, 30th, 25th, and 22nd against quarterbacks. Do you guys know who that is?
Kirk Cousins.
He also has a very good schedule.
Good guess.
But it's not him.
So
it is, of course, league winner Daniel Jones.
No.
Stop.
Yeah, man.
But he had 3 touchdowns yesterday. One called back too.
It's like I said, start him next year against Washington when he's the starting quarterback again.
We'll
also talk about Terry McLaurin and if he can be a top 10 wide receiver going forward. Kyler Murray and what he'll be like rest of season, and looking at players on bad teams. What can we use to guess? Because are you worried? Let's say about Alvin Kamara, who's 29 and under contract next year and playing on one of the worst teams in football. What happens to players like these? Are they just going to start sitting? Is there any way we could know? We'll talk about that. But let's start with the Colts and the Vikings. Minnesota with the 8-point win. They dominated possession, 36 minutes and 54 seconds of possession. And it was an ugly day for Joe Flacco for sure. Jacob, first word on this game? Excuse me.
Yeah, this was something I was wondering, like, what we might see from Flacco. And I think that you have to remember that this type of performance is possible. Like, up till this point, it's like Josh Downs is wide receiver 5 overall when Flacco plays and stuff like that. This is a tough test, a real test, this Minnesota defense. And I thought he looked flustered a lot, especially early in the game. I saw a crazy stat right before I went to bed. I didn't watch the second half. I want to say through the first 6 or 7 drives, they didn't have a single drive that lasted more than 6 plays or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
So it just wasn't very functional out here. It was still Josh Downs clearly leading the way in terms of targets, and then Jonathan Taylor's usage was really good again. 71% snap rate for him, 5 targets for Jonathan Taylor. So you like to see that. But this is the low end on the range of outcomes for the Colts.
They did not run a play in the red zone. And
wow,
can you basically compare Flacco and Jameis Winston, that these guys are going to have ugly games where they turn the ball over and don't look so great, but still I'd rather have them at quarterback. If I have Downs, if I have Pittman, who's coming off a horrible game, I'd rather have them than the other guy. Fair?
And Richardson, well, look, I think the only way it's going to work in Indianapolis is if they change what they're doing. I did not like how they operated this game plan at all. I was thinking they would go towards something that maybe we'd see that we had seen from Flacco with Cleveland last year, which is kind of an under center, go through the run game, let him go off play action drops, and let him hit his back foot and rip intermediate and vertical shots. But it was very pass heavy approach. Some of they had like a 2nd and 2 that turned into a 4th and 2 with 2 straight incompletions, turnover on downs. They were really just not operating the game plan I thought they would with Flacco. And I was questioning Shane Steichen because I don't feel like he's done a great job this year after getting kind of crowned last year. And then, people referencing the work he did with Jalen Hurts. So I've lost a little bit of faith here. I think Michael Pittman is somebody you have to bench. You can't play him. I would assume most people have already, but they drafted him highly. This is not an offense I'm trusting the rest of the way.
Are you trusting Josh Downs, though?
Downs, you can still trust. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Downs ends up with a solid game, 6 catches, 60 yards on 9 targets, by far his worst game with Joe Flacco, which is saying something here. On the other side of the ball, let's talk about Sam Darnold, a season high in pass attempts with 34. Of course, they did, like I said, they had the ball for 36 minutes and 54 seconds. They ran 71 plays to only 49 for the Colts. Sam Darnold is a top 12 quarterback per game in both formats. He is on pace for a little more than 4,000 yards 36 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and 255 rushing yards, which is really not fluky. He's actually had seasons where he's averaged a little bit more rushing yards per game. And he's just having a good year. I don't really know that there's much else to say about it. I feel like if he plays a team that's going to get after him, that could be trouble. But if not, he's probably going to throw some touchdowns here. So
I want to talk about that. So this was one of the easiest pass rushes that they're going to face. And I'm pretty worried we talked about Darisaw being out. I went and watched about 2/3 of the game on the Minnesota side of things to watch specifically the left tackle, Cam Robinson. And man, he does not move very well. I think he's going to really struggle with teams that blitz more. The Colts only blitz 20% of the time, but they still generated a 33% pressure rate. And Robinson specifically gave up 2 pressures and 4 hurries. I'm pretty worried. I don't know. I think Darnold is playing exceptionally, compared to the rest of his career. And then obviously Justin Jefferson's so good that it doesn't really matter. But I am a little bit worried about the pressure going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing is, when they had only played 2 games with a healthy DeForest Buckner, and in those 2 games, they actually had a great pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
They were both against Houston, so I didn't really think too much of it. And they didn't have a great pass rush last night, the Colts, that is. I don't know. I get the concerns, but at the end of the day, we're halfway through the season, and he's still getting it done. Now, one thing I noticed, though, is Aaron Jones. He only has 2 rushing touchdowns this year. Aaron Jones has 8 carries from the 5-yard line or closer, and he's only scored on 1 of them. And 4 times it's been followed up. An unsuccessful run inside the 5-yard line has been followed up with a Sam Darnold touchdown. So there is a little bit of that going on where Jones is doing really horribly. I went back, I watched all these carries. It's not necessarily his fault, but just no chance on these carries from the 2-yard line. And then Sam Darnold comes and he follows him up. It kind of reminds me of DeAndre Swift last year, getting stopped at the 1-yard line 8 times, and Jalen Hurts getting a tush push on almost all of them. But it is what it is. Darnold's still getting it done. I just think he's part of this big cluster of quarterbacks that are more or less the same, and you're going to start them based on matchup one over the other. That's kind of how I see the quarterback position. You got some must-start guys, and then you've probably got 10 every week, be it Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, hoping he can elevate himself, Kyler Murray, and many more. Maybe Jared Goff, because he barely throws the ball, that you're just going to play the matchups with. And I think Darnold's in that group.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's a fair assessment. I was thinking the only thing that stood out to me was just how much better the Vikings are pass blocking versus run blocking. This is something I've noticed all season. It's something that dates back to pretty much all of Kevin O'Connell's time. It's not a big focus of his, the run game, even though he called it out that it would be this past offseason. Doesn't appear to be. So I'm not so sure that Aaron Jones is going to really be some kind of regression candidate from a touchdown standpoint, even though it appears to be that he would.
But he's got 40 carries in his last 2 games, and this is the most run heavy that O'Connell's ever been. He's just not scoring.
I don't mean from a play calling standpoint. I mean from a design standpoint.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about specifically converting more efficiently on goal line carries, right, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, but the overall role for Jones is great for sure.
The role is great. Yeah, I just don't have faith in their run scheme.
It was again this week, 76% snap rate for him. Cam Akers actually played ahead of Ty Chandler. I assume he was benched. I didn't see anything about an injury. But yeah, it was almost all Aaron Jones. 70% route participation for Jones. That was, I think, top 3 at running back this week.
Right. Now, you love the touches. 21 or more touches in each of the last 2 games. They've just been disappointing results, but you got to figure he'll do better than that. And he looks pretty good. He looks pretty fast out there. And
oh, yeah.
But the one thing is kind of weird is they are not a very pass-heavy team. They're 20th in pass rate, which is bizarre. In the red zone, though, they're 8th in pass rate. Inside the 10-yard line, they're 10th in pass rate. Inside the 5-yard line, they're 7th in pass rate. These are things that are helping Darnold and not helping Aaron Jones. Are we hanging on to TJ Hawkinson, who played about half the snaps? Are we hanging on to him, or do you think he's expendable?
Yeah, definitely.
I think he looks pretty good out there, actually, just movement-wise.
And I think their pass rates overall are influenced by game script so much.
Yes, they're 6-2 team. Completely agree with that.
All right. Tell us what's coming up on Beyond the Box Score this week, guys. Dan?
Yeah, this week's Beyond the Box Score. Same time, same place, Thursday. I'm actually not... Jacob, who do we got going
Heath
for
Cummings. Heath Cummings this
Heath
week.
Coming for this week. Nice.
Where's he from?
Where's Heath Cummings from? Yeah. So with Heath coming up, I think we're going to take a little bit more of a dynasty approach. I think that'll be fun to talk some long-term stuff with Heath and get a check-in of where we're at with a lot of that. And Heath does great work on dynasty all season long. You can check out his dynasty trade charts for kind of the update of where he's at with a lot of players. So we'll discuss some of that, and we'll get into it with Heath. I'm excited for that. We had Dave last week, and it was a lot of fun.
Last thing, you say same time.
I forgot actually though, Adam. Are you still planning to boycott the show with us? Or are you gonna grace us with your presence on an episode?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
you say same time, same place, but where and when?
So you can find us on YouTube. We're not going live yet, but you can find us on the Fantasy Football Today Express feed on YouTube, usually around the mid-afternoon on Thursdays.
Yeah, and just to address something that people are buzzing about. No, I'm not wearing the same shirt I was wearing yesterday. I was wearing the Star Trek shirt yesterday. It just happens to be that 70% of my wardrobe is blue. We're going to take a break on Fantasy Football Today. News and notes, snap counts, advanced metrics, 4 big topics, coaches getting fired. We'll be right back on FFT.
Mr. Richard?
Yeah, Doc.
Unfortunately, Mr. Nibbles crossed the Rainbow Bridge moments ago.
He was the best hamster I have ever known.
I know this is a difficult time for you, but would you happen to know of any deep stash dynasty tight ends I could zero in on for my draft tonight?
Jatavion Sanders.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm going to deliver a quick take. I see Adam laughing at the commercial we played there. I'm going to deliver a quick take. And
Wait, before you do that, I'm going to type it because I think I know what you're going to say. And then as soon as you're done saying it, I'm going to send it in our private chat because I think I'm going to have the same take as you. Go ahead.
Well, my take is that we've seen 2 of our FFT members on these commercials for CBS Sports, Dave and Jamie. And no offense to our friend Jamie, but Dave is the much better actor than Jamie.
I thought I'm going to send what I typed. I thought you were going to say Chris Hassel is an amazing actor.
Oh, he's on another level. Chris Hassel's on a whole different level. We're not including Chris Hassel. He doesn't work for FFT. He's on his own. He does CBS Sports stuff, but like HQ. But you can't put in Chris Hassel. Like Chris Hassel has some of those clips that go viral that are even funnier.
He's so good.
He's like a different level. But I gotta say, Dave is a considerably good actor. He could have done it maybe in a different life. No offense to Jamie. Jamie did well too, but not at that same
I don't think I would do a promo because I don't want to be judged against Dave.
I'm the opposite. I would love to have that opportunity.
I don't know. Okay, well, we'll never get a chance, so don't worry about it. News and notes. We got the Raiders firing their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, and their QB coach and their offensive line coach going into their bye week. The Saints fired Dennis Allen. They are not going into their bye week. They have the Falcons this week. So, Jacob, any thoughts on how this might change things?
Kendra Miller is out, unfortunately. He was the one who we know Dennis Allen does not like. I don't really have any thoughts on the Saints. I'm kind of glad to see them hopefully moving in a different direction.
Yeah, the only thought I had maybe for the Raiders was that they might try to be a little more run heavy. They stink, so it's not going to be easy. But it's not like Jacoby Myers is crushing it on a per target basis. He needs them to keep throwing and get 8-9 targets would be nice. But I don't want to make something out of nothing, so I don't really know that there's anything here. So we'll just move on unless you guys have anything else to say. Okay, you don't.
We'll talk about it a little bit later because there's a question that kind of involves what's going to happen with these types of teams.
Okay, Dak Prescott's got the hamstring injury. We don't know anything. The Cowboys didn't seem like these were season enders or anything for Lamb and Dak, but we'll see. I think they're getting it examined today. Caleb Williams says he's okay with the ankle injury. And we'll see who the quarterback is for the Raiders coming out of the bye. I assume it's going to be Minshew, but Desmond Ridder did get in the fourth quarter. Running back news, we're expecting Jonathan Brooks this week against the Giants. Isaiah Pacheco hoping for a late November return. And then, Jacob, you had the stats on the Dolphins running back stats when after Raheem Mostert fumbled. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but
no, you're good. I've got it.
Specific. Okay. Yeah.
Third play in the second half, Raheem Mostert fumbled. From that point on, the snap rates were 79% for Etienne, 24% for Jalen Wright, and only 10% for Mostert. Mostert only touched the ball one more time the rest of the game. I think Wright had like 5 touches. So he basically got replaced by the rookie, and then Etienne was just like out there almost all the time.
Yeah. So I was wrong about that on the Sunday night show. I apologize. I didn't think it was that stark. Drake London's got what looks like a hip pointer, not expected to be a long-term injury. Chris Olave says he's doing well. Puka Nacua should be back after getting ejected. A.J. Brown, again, looks like he avoided serious injury. He might be able to play this week against the Cowboys. So kind of got lucky there with some of these injuries.
Right.
Except we don't know about CeeDee Lamb, but he was able to come back in the game. Lamb, though, is maybe going to be playing hurt. Dak could be playing hurt. I don't know what you could get for CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if you want to try to trade CeeDee Lamb, but I don't like. He wasn't doing. It looked like the same old crap before the injury to Dak, like another pretty underwhelming game. And then it just goes back to he had one great quarter against the 49ers where they
At the end of the game,
covering him wide open. It's just not clicking right now for them.
It's not clicking because of what we talked about this earlier, Adam, and I stand by it. Like, teams are taking away CeeDee Lamb. That's their number one thing in their game plan. And Dak Prescott is not a quarterback who's going to force the ball, and he's going to go in different directions. And right now, he just kind of looks broken in general. That offense looks broken. The McCarthy offense. I predicted this a year early. I said it last year. I was very worried about Dallas players. I was totally wrong. It was a bad take last year. It was just a year early, and now I think they're catching up to the system. It's how it goes with these McCarthy, McAdoo, the Hackett, all these systems that don't use motion, that just lean on winning one-on-one matchups in 11 personnel. Eventually, it gets got.
Yep. Never wrong, only early.
Yeah, no, I'm wrong all the time. But this one,
I love that.
Brian, oh, speaking of, actually, I want to take a quick victory lap.
Yes.
See, I think this is I've learned this is why I have so many haters. They take these victory laps, but they're mostly in jest. Okay, I don't actually think I'm right all the time. I don't actually think I'm any good, but I will say this. I will say this. Jahmyr White.
Yeah.
Weeks ago.
Yes.
A few weeks ago, I said you can cut Jahmyr White. It's probably like a month and a half ago. Me and Jacob didn't even have him ranked in our top 150 preseason. We knew it was a busted pick. Adam's laughing at me. You can't cut a guy like this. He's a starting running back. He played 7 snaps yesterday, Adam. 7 snaps. Right. Can we cut him now?
Of course you can cut him now. He lost his job. He got hurt. Didn't help. But yeah, no, you were right.
Don't blame it on the injury. Come on, my friend.
You were right. You were right. Brian saying just because teams got good news on injuries doesn't mean they don't miss time. Absolutely true. I just don't think we have any long-term injuries. Maybe CeeDee Lamb. We'll see. But in terms of A.J. Brown, in terms of Drake London, and hopefully in terms of Chris Olave, I don't know that we have any long-term injuries there. All right. More news. That's pretty much it. Darius Slayton was checked for a concussion.
He said, Entourage the show right here. Adam is Vince. Dan is Ari. Jamie is Johnny. Jacob is Eric. Dan is Turtle as well. So I like that, actually. I would love to be Ari and Turtle at the same time.
I like it. Yeah, I like it quite a bit.
You get Vince. So, I mean, you're the lucky guy here.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And that's it for the news and notes for now. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM, let's go. Use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up on BetMGM. And I can't do my favorite bet this week. I can't bet against these slight favorites against the Giants, who are obviously going to cover.
Well, the Giants are actually, for the first time in 24 games, they're a favorite. It's unbelievable that they've been an underdog for 24 games. The life of a Giants fan has become the life of a Jets fan, which I never thought it would be.
That's not good. A lot of teams are 2-6 right now. I think there are 6 or 7 teams that are 2-6.
The Giants can't win a game, and they only have the 7th pick right now in the draft. It's unbelievable.
All right, let's talk about some advanced metrics, some snap rates. Jacob, take it away.
Yeah, on the Giants note, the Giants blitzed Jayden Daniels on 60% of his dropbacks and did not have a single sack. 60% is pretty crazy. I'm curious to get your guys' takeaway. I obviously don't watch the Giants.
Go ahead, Adam.
No, I say, why would anybody? But you could go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a total change from what we've seen from Shane Bowen, the Giants defense coordinator. It's his highest blitz rate, and not only did they not get a sack, it was almost no pressures in this game.
24% pressure rate, which is low.
Which is low when you're blitzing like 60% of the time. It's unbelievably low. I think they tried something different against Daniels because their first week, in week 2, they essentially just played off coverage the entire game and left soft zone the entire time with no blitzing, and that didn't work. This didn't work either because Jayden Daniels, you can't really blitz because he makes good decisions with the ball. He's good under pressure. He can navigate the pocket and throw the ball downfield. I thought he looked awesome. People are like, oh, Jayden Daniels didn't really do much. Didn't look that good. I'm like, because he didn't have to. They had a 2-touchdown lead the entire time, and he made huge throws when he had to. So I just think it's tough for these defensive coordinators to scheme against Jayden Daniels, and it's going to be like that for a long time. They're going to try to find solutions. So far, teams have tried to blitz him. They've tried to play off coverage. There haven't been that many solutions yet to stopping this quarterback.
Yeah, and he has one receiver basically. I mean, he's getting something out of
Right.
Noah Brown, but it's amazing what he's doing. He doesn't have. I looked at every quarterback schedule. He doesn't really have a great schedule. I just don't care. I don't care.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, he's schedule proof. Even Zach Ertz, he's making the most out of. So,
All right, Jacob.
So after this game, Jayden Daniels on the year is QB 9 out of 25 qualifiers in sack to pressure ratio. That was a huge red flag for him coming out of college. He had the worst of any quarterback drafted in round 1. And it's been really, really good so far this year. So I just am going to keep bringing that up and keep hammering that as long as it is consistent and maintains going forward. On that note, I'm curious if you guys know who has the best sack to pressure ratio on the year. It's not Josh Allen like normal. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not Lamar Jackson, who's really improved his rate this year. It's not Brock Purdy, who's really improved his rate this year. 9% sack to pressure ratio. Any idea?
How about Jared Goff?
Bo
Nix is
Bo
fourth. But it is Jordan Love.
Okay. Wow.
Has really, really improved his rate. 16% last year to 9% this year. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that stat a lot.
So, real quick on Love, I want to get your take on this. Do you put him in that group of quarterbacks or do you put him ahead? So is he closer to the must-start group or closer to the Purdy, Goff, whatever, Darnold group?
I would love to see the schedule rest of the season, how that plays out for him. And if you have an idea of that, where it is, just give me kind of like a good, bad, or middling type schedule.
This is one of the average ones. This is
average.
I would call it, if anything, bad. I'd say below average.
So then I'd put him in that group based on the schedule rest of the season. But
I think he's got some paper tigers on the schedule. Put it that way.
Because he got really hot in the second half of last season. I don't really think he's had everything go right for him yet at all at any point this season. And that could happen at any point from a health standpoint, not just for him, but for his receivers. And like yesterday, for example, they're throwing in like a windy, coldy rain game. And he still almost puts up 300 yards. So I'd say he's on the borderline there. I would take him over any of those guys, though.
Yeah, I would put him up in that group. That's how he projects for me most weeks. They've got a bye week this week, and hopefully it's been real discombobulated, like you alluded to. And I hope that coming out of this, things will be, we're healthier. We're on the stretch right now. And they have a lot of potential shootouts. I don't know if Chicago will be one in week 11, but after that, they have the Niners, then they have the Dolphins, then they have the Lions, then they have the Seahawks. Any of those games could be a shootout. Week 17 fantasy championship against the Vikings. Not necessarily a good matchup, but definitely could be a shootout.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Keep it rolling, you're saying? You're talking to me? Okay. Yeah. Some snap rates at running back, just some interesting ones this week. Travis Etienne's was only 31%. Tank Bigsby still led the way, actually ran the most routes, which really surprised me. And they got Dearness Johnson involved a little bit as well. So really not a relevant role for Etienne at all. 36% for Jahmyr Gibbs. That was his lowest snap rate since his first game as a pro. Not an ideal game script for him. Which is probably why it was so low, but still just not what you want to see. I think the first 8 carries went to David Montgomery. 99%, Kyren Williams. Blake Corum barely played at all. I think he had 1 snap. And so that is interesting for a couple of reasons. If Kyren is able to sustain this, then obviously he's like top 3 running back. But at the same time, I keep bringing this up. He's got to go like 10 straight weeks without getting hurt. He's a guy who's had a lot of injuries, and he's had a massive, massive workload this year. So this almost to me reads like a Corum note, which maybe seems counterintuitive since Corum got phased out a little bit. But if Kyren goes down, then there's a massive, massive workload available. 70% Tyrone Tracy, our guy, just continues to be the guy, and that's exciting. 79% Chase Brown. That was the 3rd highest among running backs this week. 79% snap rate, 63% route participation. Previously, his highest route rate was 52%. He's only been above 40% once. So that's really, really good. He didn't get used much as a pass blocker, and one of his pass protection reps, he nearly gave up a sack. So that's something to keep an eye on if he can actually be trusted with that role. But it didn't sound like Zach Moss was particularly close to playing this week. 5 targets.
Playing Thursday, too.
Yeah.
So
5 targets for Chase Brown, too, which is dope.
Another good running back. They get no shortage of those in fantasy this year.
Yeah. No other running back touched the ball for Cincinnati. 27 rush attempts.
Wow.
So it was all Chase Brown. Etienne, we talked about a little bit, but have to give some context on this because it's really nuts. In 7 healthy games, he's averaged 7.5 PPR points per game as a rusher and 12 PPR points per game as a receiver. So he's really contributing more as a receiver than a rusher. In the games with Tua, he has 23, 30, 27, and 31 PPR points. In those games, he has averaged 17.8 PPR points just as a receiver in 4 games played with Tua. His lowest game is 14.6 PPR points just as a receiver. On the year, the only players who are averaging more than 17.8 PPR points as a receiver: Nico Collins, Chris Godwin, Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, George Kittle. That's what Etienne has done in the games with Tua. Then he also has rushing.
I hate it for everyone except for Etienne. I hate it for Tua. I hate it for Waddle. I hate it for Hill. I hate it. And you got Jonnu Smith getting like 5 targets. It's not working out for the Dolphins in their highly concentrated pass offense that they used to have. I hate it, but it's great for Devon Etienne. So
I didn't have the time to this morning, but I do want to, and we can maybe discuss this on Thursday's episode, Jacob. I want to dive into the Dolphins offense with Tua in the 2 games back, because I just want to figure out what's going on here, because there's so much tape from last year with them getting Waddle involved constantly, Tyreek Hill, who had a few big plays. And it just seems like that game plan has been totally altered this year. As you mentioned, so much more featuring the running back in the passing game, even Jonnu Smith. So it's not necessarily not working for them. They almost won a football game. I just want to see if there's opportunity for Waddle, because I'm starting to get very worried on that front.
I think something coming into play is that 2 of these games are against the Bills, who are like an umbrella zone defense that keep everything in front of them. And then one of the games was against the Cardinals, who do that more than anyone. They're dropping 3 safeties and stuff. Like, they're really, really forcing you to throw short and hardly ever allowing throws to the Cardinals have the lowest opponent first read target rate in the NFL. They just really take away outside receivers. So it's been pretty tough draws for Waddle. I would expect it to even out. But that might just be hopium because I'm very invested in Waddle's success, and it's been extremely frustrating.
No, that's good context.
We had a conversation yesterday, Ja'Marr Chase versus Tyreek Hill, and I was the only one who even considered Tyreek Hill, I think. And eventually I said, I'll just take Ja'Marr Chase, but it's really worth noting. Ja'Marr Chase has 22 targets in his last 2 games for 54 yards and 43 yards. And this is 2 games without T. Higgins.
Yeah.
T. Higgins is playing. He usually doesn't get these targets. And I still, going into the season, this was not even close. This was easy Tyreek Hill to me. So I'm not saying that you have to take Tyreek Hill here, but the way he was being discussed last night made me want to buy low on Tyreek Hill. I don't really believe in Jalen Waddle right now, but I still believe in Tyreek Hill. Certainly could be wrong.
That's fair. I think I would probably take Hill too. I'd have to look at the schedule rest of the season, but I might take Hill as well. I also feel like, I mean, the stats probably don't show this, especially not from a target standpoint, but from an efficiency standpoint, I feel like Ja'Marr Chase is a better player when Higgins is on the field.
Yeah, I think Higgins helps him for sure. This year it has. All right, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, 227 air yards, by far the highest of his career. He only has 3 career games over 100. So this is a huge deviation from what we've seen. I've been insistent that he can do this, that this is in his skill set, and so it's really good to see it come to fruition. He could have honestly had like 250 receiving yards in this game easily.
This is why he was drafted so early. This is why he was a big dynasty play, because in Ohio State, he was used through the air in intermediate, deep, vertical areas of the field. Hopefully, this is a sign of things to come. I'm a little skeptical that we could see this being more of an outlier game for JSN.
Did you see his slot rate yesterday?
No. What was it?
91%.
Jeez.
So unbelievable. He still is he's just in that role, but at least he had a 9.2 yard average route depth and 17.5. There we go. 17.5 yard ADOT. So they used him downfield. He had 70 something yards called back on penalties. Unbelievable game for him. But wow. Yeah, I think I'm still worried if they're just going to use him in the slot. I'm sorry. I just don't know that it's going to propel him. I hope it does, but I don't know.
Speaking of air yards, there have been 11 instances of a quarterback hitting 400 or more air yards in a game while also completing over half of his passes in a game. 11 times this season it's happened. Only one quarterback has done it twice. It's Jameis Winston. He's played 2 games.
I have some stats for you on the Browns offense. Okay.
That's crazy.
Listen to this. So they are among the teams with the highest percentage of 3 receiver sets, or 3 or more receiver sets, and that's very good. Over the last 3 weeks, the Cleveland Browns have 4 players that are in the top 14 in targets. Cedric Tillman is tied for first. David Njoku is fifth. Elijah Moore is tied for seventh. And Jerry Jeudy is tied for 14th. They all have 25 or more targets. They have thrown 52, 41, and 46 passes. In the last 3 weeks, here are the top 5 players in routes run. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, Kayshon Boutte, and Elijah Moore. 4 of the top 5 players in routes run are on the Cleveland Browns, and one of them is a tight end. And I don't know. That's actually like very significant. Can they keep this up? Can they keep throwing the ball this much? They did last year with Joe Flacco, right, at the end of the year, and it was awesome for Cooper. But this is crazy because every week 3 receivers are getting 8 or more targets, and it's not like they're so great on a per-target basis or anything like that. So what do you think about that, Jacob?
Yeah, that's good context, and I people aren't going to like this, and it could be the wrong take because we're on the precipice of like a huge breakout here potentially. But I think you could use those stats to potentially explain like why it might be a good idea to sell Cedric Tillman. I think people are really, really high on him, and I don't know if we see this going forward, then sure it could sustain. But like it is still getting spread around a lot. It's not like it's necessarily funneling through Tillman, and it's pretty hard to expect this to sustain over a large sample size like you just laid out. It's like by far and away the most pass heavy offense in the NFL.
I don't know that it needs to sustain though, because at that level, at least, like the stat you brought up, Jacob, to me stands out. It's happened 11 times, 400 plus air yards, and it's happened twice in Jameis Winston starts. Like that doesn't have to sustain. It doesn't have to be every start. It's still going to be a lot more than any other team, and it's going to give a lot more opportunities to the receivers to make plays. I'm on the opposite way with Cedric Tillman. I think
so high. Not not sell high, not like sell like, oh, I've got a flash in a pan and I'm just dumping it.
Would you sell him for DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle?
No,
I don't think so. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like I look at him as somebody who I remember scouting at Tennessee and remember being like, the tape was so good, especially the year he was healthy, the second to last year that he was there. And it was ex-receiver type tape. So it's kind of like we're getting back to these like Brian Thomas type prospects and these guys who have all the tools, the size, the route running, the explosiveness, the ability to win downfield, the ability to win in contested catch situations. It's not like, and I have been high on the other types of guys like Eli Moore, and I was wrong about him, but this is a different level from a fantasy standpoint. It's somebody who I think can be a wide receiver 1 because he's potentially a complete player, and obviously has the best rapport going with Jameis Winston in the most important areas, which is down the field. Because like Jacob said, I mean, that's unbelievable. 400 plus air yards, 2 of 11 times with Jameis Winston. He's only started 2 games. So I like Tillman the rest of the way. I think he's like, if we're narrowing it down to who are the league winners here, like we had easy ones last year, Puka, but we haven't had as many easy ones this year. He may be one of the guys that's in that like Mount Rushmore for me of potential.
Morgan asks, Tillman or Mooney rest of season?
I think it depends a lot on the Drake London injury.
It's a really good question. I think I might lean towards Mooney. The schedule is so great, whereas the Browns' schedule is pretty rough.
Yeah, it is.
And the Falcons' offensive environment is like nearly as good as Cleveland's, and we've seen that over a much larger sample size than just 2 games.
Yeah, I would lean Mooney for that reason as well. A lot of dome games coming too. I'm a big weather guy when it comes to fantasy analysis. As we get to the end of the season, I really do believe in it. I believe playing in Cleveland, places like that, it makes it really hard to throw the football.
All right, I'm sorry to do this to you, Jacob. I, just in full transparency, have a parent-teacher conference in 12 minutes that I have to leave for.
Wow.
So we get to the rest of the show here. So can I cut you off there?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Just tell you this one thing that really stood out to me. Zay Flowers played only 2 snaps with Deontay Johnson on the field. Rashad Bateman played 10. And I have no idea what that's about. But when Deontay Johnson was on the field, they didn't increase their 3 receiver sets. This team plays 3 receiver sets less than any team in football. They didn't have a higher percentage. They just didn't use Zay Flowers. It was Deontay Johnson and Rashad Bateman. I think, would agree they'd have to be morons to take Zay Flowers off the field. He's unbelievable. But it's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on a little bit later. All right, we're going to take a break here and come back with our 4 big topics after this on Fantasy Football Today.
Get ready for more UEFA Champions League action.
Absolutely astonishing. It's an exceptional goal.
It's been bonkers football. The UEFA Champions League on CBS Sports Network and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
Okay, topic number 1 comes from Al Johnson. I can't say that. AJ Johnson, I think. Sorry for butchering your name. Is Terry McLaurin a wide receiver 1? And if we just kind of remove the first 2 games of the year where Jayden Daniels was just dumping the ball off to running backs the whole time, since week 3, he is wide receiver 9 per game in full PPR. That's with Chris Godwin being wide receiver 8. So if you just use the healthy guys, he's the 8th best receiver.
Azer stat.
Well, just trying to compare him to everyone else. He's 8th best, and that's in full PPR. And McLaurin is only on pace for 83 catches, and he's still top 10 in full PPR per game. And these are all numbers since week 3. So, guys, is Terry McLaurin a wide receiver 1 moving forward?
I've been ranking him that way lately.
I think he's still wide receiver 2 for me. The volume just isn't there. He does put up touchdowns in that offense and big plays down the field. But having watched the way that offense has operated in at least 2 games on tape this year, it doesn't necessarily operate in the way that I would like for a wide receiver 1. A lot of passes to the tight ends, a lot of throwbacks, a lot of bootleg, get it out to the back. So it's just not my version. I would say it's borderline, though, especially given how bad wide receiver position is this year. Maybe it is wide receiver 1.
He's really doing a great job. He's scoring like half their touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's been a lot of touchdowns, which tend to regress.
But since week 3, Terry McLaurin leads the NFL in end zone targets.
Yep.
And he's 9th in red zone targets. So I think they've thrown 13 touchdowns in that stretch. No, they've thrown 11 in those 7 games, and he's caught 6 of them. So they got that great end zone role. And then where do they rank in terms of pass attempts? They rank it's the 28.7 pass attempts per game in those 7 games. That would be 25th in the NFL. But here are teams that are throwing less than that: Baltimore, the Chargers, the Vikings, Cardinals, Lions, Steelers, Eagles. You've got Zay Flowers on a team that throws less than the Commanders. You've got Justin Jefferson. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got A.J. Brown on a team that throws less than anyone in the NFL. So this is usually a terrible stat. You don't get a lot of wide receivers who finish top 12 on bottom 5 pass attempts teams. You're going to get that this year, at least 2. Well, we'll see if things change, but at least 2 of them. All right. This is from Addy, who's Dan Schneier's boss and kind of all of our bosses.
Well, it would be nice if you knew how to pronounce it.
Addy. I don't know why I said Addy. It's a friend of my son.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I swear. What type
it reminds me of the time when I called you Iser and you you couldn't believe it,
bro? I am half the people that I'm friends with call me Iser.
I told you it wasn't something that was like unprecedented. How could anybody get it wrong? Like you asked.
Like, yeah, I saw this guy who I'm friends with, becoming good friends with now, and he saw me out at dinner. He's like, "Oh, the Isers are here," and I didn't. So like, just really an ego check. Like this guy obviously is not that good of a friend. Adi says, what types of players do best as a team gives up on the season? Rookies like Brian Thomas Jr., running backs in contract years like Chuba Hubbard, underneath guys like Wan'Dale Robinson as they get backup quarterbacks. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I had a few that stood out to me. I was taking a look at it. I was kind of narrowing it down to we have 9 2-win teams in the NFL this year, which is crazy. So I was looking at those teams specifically. A few guys that stood out to me. The first one I want to mention is Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver for the Patriots. Obviously built a rapport with Drake May during training camp and during those summer months. It's carried over to some extent, though there hasn't been that breakout game just yet. But he led the Patriots in snaps this week. He's led him in snaps every week. I think you brought up the stat earlier, Adam, about how I think he's the 4th most snaps. He was with all those routes run. So the snaps are there. The routes run are there. The rapport is there with Drake May. He's somebody I would buy on. A deep guy I was thinking about is Marcus Tipton, the undrafted rookie free agent on the Saints, who had the most snaps and I believe ran the most routes for the Saints this week. With Chris Olave out for potentially an extended period, maybe even on the trade block once out of New Orleans. Another team that's toiling away. Maybe that's something they try to feature. That's a player. Jalen Coker for the Panthers, though he didn't play the routes I was hoping he would, so maybe it's Xavier Legette there.
Mason Tipton.
Sorry, not Marcus Tipton. Mason Tipton. Got that one wrong. Haven't watched him much. I know he had 3 targets with no reception, so it's not like this is like a deep type of look. But these are just the types of players, and I would think players like Tyrone Tracy, for example, on a 2-win Giants team, will continue to get most of the share as he has. It won't be a situation where they go back. Vegas is an interesting one. I couldn't find any backs I liked there. Look, they drafted, I believe, Lab. Was that who they got? But he hasn't really played much. And Amir Abdullah had 30 snaps this past game. So I think they're with Antonio Pierce. I wouldn't look too deeply into that one. Maybe we finally get some Kendry Miller, but I think he's back on the IR as well. So I don't know if that's the play there either. But yeah, I would look into maybe some of these younger backs and some of these receivers.
I went back and I looked at the 7 teams I think that had 6 or fewer wins last year. So the worst teams in football.
Yeah.
If we could come up with anything, and it really was a mixed bag. I think you look at the Chargers, they lost Justin Herbert to a broken finger, so he legitimately was going to miss that time. Keenan Allen, on the other hand, I don't know if he was healthy enough to come back. He had a heel injury. He would be on the injury report, and he never played after Justin Herbert's injury. There was no reason to. I think that happened with DeAndre Hopkins with the Cardinals a few years ago as well. So a veteran wide receiver or a veteran player getting injured on a bad team, there is definitely a concern of them sitting. And again, I don't know the medicals, and I'm not saying that they sat out because of the record, but just common sense tells you they're going to be more cautious. They're certainly not going to play a guy if he's not, if it's not one of those situations where, it's a must win, he's playing. Obviously, that doesn't exist anymore. On the other hand, Saquon Barkley for the Giants, he had a full workload late in the year. Arizona gave James Conner 26 and 27 carries in week 17 and 18. I think Breece Hall had like 36 carries, 18 or something like that. So it is a mixed bag. I do worry about Alvin Kamara on this train wreck of a team because he's not a free agent. They did just give him a contract extension. How much do they want to push him on a team that's going nowhere? And his value is sky high right now. So
career high 35 touches for Alvin Kamara last week. That was insane.
Yeah, and he's going to lose touchdowns to Taysom Hill. It's one of those you have to get anything you want for Alvin Kamara. But if people are valuing him as basically a top 5 overall player or something like that, because when he's had Derek Carr, he has been that. He has been that good. Then I think you might want to consider getting rid of him. I don't know. Any final thoughts on this? Okay. Nope. Man, I'm not telling you to just give up Alvin Kamara. Just, name your price. All right. Don says, how trash was Kyler Murray yesterday, and how will he be rest of season?
This is one of the guys I got to watch on film. So I charted some of what he did, and I know we're low on time, Adam, so I'll try to be quick with this. He had an early 3rd and 6 hole shot on a deep out against a pre-snap single high look. The Bears rotated too high. It was a great read by Kyler. Ball placement was inside, off, lacking velocity. Thought that was a miss by him. Later, next drive, 3rd and 6, thought he missed Zay Flowers. Pocket broke down. He stepped up into a sack. Then he had Harrison fumble kill a next drive. 6 straight runs at one point for the Cardinals. I think they're a very run-heavy team. They're going to remain that way. A red zone miss to Michael Wilson where the ball placement was bad. Quarter 3, 12:09. Pressure forced him off his landmark. It took away a chance for an explosive play downfield. Route combos were getting wide receivers open. I noted that in my notes multiple times. I feel like they're doing a good job getting receivers open. Sometimes Murray's just hesitant to pull the trigger. 2nd and 6, 6:20 in quarter 3. For those who have NFL Plus and want to look it up, you has McBride underneath in the red zone with Harrison running kind of a clear out natural pick. There's space for McBride to roll to the end zone, maybe one. He hesitates, doesn't throw it, takes the sack. Later, he has a 3rd and 7, 14-11, quarter 4. Harrison gets a one-on-one in the right hash. This is the first time he saw Harrison with a one-on-one with no safety over the top. And the ball just dies on Harrison. The footwork was really bad. He falls away from the throw. Needs to take a quick 2-3-step drop. Takes it, but just misses the throw. Just feel like he's missing stuff reads-wise in the middle of the field. He doesn't read it well. And the ball placement just hasn't been what I've been accustomed to or what I've hoped for Kyler Murray. He's still going to be a good fantasy quarterback because he's going to be able to run, but it's just there's going to be times where he makes it so frustrating for the passing game for McBride and Harrison.
And they just run the ball. They throw 28 times a game. That's a career low for Kyler Murray. Jacob, let me give you 2 17-game paces. Jalen Hurts, 3,770 yards, 21 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, 3,385 yards, 21 touchdowns. It's about a 400 passing yard difference, same amount of touchdowns. Rushing yards, Jalen Hurts, 684, Kyler Murray, 661, almost even. Jalen Hurts is on pace for 17 rushing touchdowns. Kyler Murray is on pace for 4. Kyler Murray has 0 carries inside the 5-yard line. Jalen Hurts has 10. Saquon Barkley has 9. Philadelphia has 21. Arizona has 6. So there are encouraging things for Kyler, but he doesn't score enough.
Yeah.
And he's averaging like 8-something yards per carry, which is crazy.
And some of the reason he hasn't scored enough is because of the red zone issues we were talking about. He missed a touchdown to Wilson. He missed a touchdown to McBride, and he missed the touchdown again to McBride. I'm not even talking about the wide open McBride when I'm talking about the one that I referenced where Harrison ran the clear out. So that's 3 potential missed touchdowns on Kyler.
All right. Sorry, Jacob. Let's talk about the last topic here. And I do apologize for cutting this show short. Monday is kind of a day where I try to get some things done. Katie asked about the quarterbacks with the best playoff schedules. Jacob, what do you have for us?
That's all you. Sorry, I'm not.
Oh,
prepared.
okay. Is that you guys want me to run this?
This
ship?
is an Azer stat. Let's let it rip.
Aaron Rodgers has a really good schedule coming up. Playoffs, rest of season. I mean, it's really good. His opponents are 20th, 22nd, 19th, 3rd, and that's the Dolphins, who are not that good. Jacksonville and the Rams. Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams in the fantasy playoffs. Really good for Aaron Rodgers. Really good for Mason Rudolph. But the big takeaway there is that Calvin Ridley has a very good schedule coming up. Bo Nix has a pretty good schedule coming up. He does have the Chargers in the fantasy playoffs, but he also has the Colts and the Bengals. Daniel Jones has the best schedule. Like the NFC East has really good schedules coming up for the most part. The NFC West does not. Daniel Jones, incredible schedule. Dak Prescott, incredible schedule coming up. Jalen Hurts, great coming up, not necessarily in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins, his next 3 opponents rank no worse than 7th against quarterbacks. After that, I mean, the fantasy playoffs for Cousins are the Raiders, Giants, and Commanders. Honestly, Commanders are 17th against quarterbacks. My personal opinion, Dan, back me up on this if you want. Watching them yesterday, I don't believe it. I don't think they're nearly as good as against the pass as they have been lately.
Agreed.
They do have a good pass rush, though, so you got to keep that in mind. Mike Evans has a good schedule. Bryce Young, for what it's worth, has a really good schedule. Bad schedules coming up or in the playoffs. Josh Allen, Detroit, New England, and the Jets. Those are his playoff matchups, 2 of them at home. Drake May does not have a good schedule after week 13. Jameis Winston's schedule is brutal. I don't know about the Saints. I don't believe in the Saints. But after that, it's Pittsburgh, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City for Jameis. Jared Goff, if that even matters, he's playing so well. Week 13, like Jared Goff's next 3 matchups are great. After week 13, though, or week 13 on, Bears, Packers, Bills, Bears, Niners. All 4 of those teams are 12th or better against quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford doesn't have a great schedule, and neither does Brock Purdy, but Purdy's to me feels like kind of, like I said, paper tigers, where like those teams aren't as good as what they are. But NFC West quarterbacks, not great. NFC East quarterbacks, great schedule. Jared Goff, great now. Not looking great in the playoffs, but I don't know that really matters with how well he's playing. Kirk Cousins is a guy to get. Maybe Malik Neighbors. Maybe Dak Prescott if he's healthy. Aaron Rodgers, the Jets passing game has a real chance. Calvin Ridley is a guy I'd highlight. So sorry to be so brief with everybody, but I do have to go today. For Dan, for Jacob, I'm Adam. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today with the Waiver Wire.